That. Well, let me say it again. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers.
Amen.
And happy Mother's Day to all you future mothers.
Amen.
Just think of it. One day in the next few years, John, it's going to be Grandpa John.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then great grandpa. I'm great grandpa Charlie.
As old as you are, I'm surprised it's not great-great-grandpa.
This is true. One thing you don't have to keep me bringing it up.
Oh, okay. All right. I have chosen a text today. The title of my message is The Mother Who Brought Down a Pharaoh. And it's over in Hebrews 11, chapter 23. Hebrews 11, verse 23.
Hebrews.
By faith,
Is that in the New Testament?
it was the last time, Charlie. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child. In other words, you know how most mothers think their child is the cutest, smartest, best?
Yeah.
All right? Well, he was. Okay? That's what that means. And they were not afraid of the king's commandments. See, this, I'll get into that in just a minute, but let me say something here. On May the 12th, 1907, that's 10 years before Daddy was born, in the town of Grafton, West Virginia, a woman by the name of Anna Jarvis held a memorial service in honor of her mother, who was deceased. And so the idea of Mother's Day just took off. It quickly spread. What few people know, Don, is that for the rest of her life, Anna Jarvis opposed the commercial and political exploitation of Mother's Day. She said Mother's Day was not about making money,
Amen.
but honoring a great mother. Now, I like to tell stories, and if you will, I would, because this leads to a point that I'm wanting to make. If you'll indulge me, this very small story. A little girl was given a part in a church play. Now, I don't know whether this is true or fictitious. It doesn't matter. It leads to the point I want to make. This little girl was given a part, tiny little girl, and very little, very young, and she was given a part in a Christian play. And it was based on John 8, chapter 8, verse 12, where Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And she really struggled with that line, okay? Well, then the day of the play, Jennifer set in, and she got up there, and guess what happened? Stage fright. And when I taught speech, I would get up there every day. Tell me about your favorite restaurant. Tell me about are you a dog or a cat person? I just pick a topic. Who's your favorite uncle? So just to get them up there. And so the time they got around to their formal speeches, they'd been up there so many times it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, she was up there. Dawn, she forgot her line. And so Mom was right there on the front row. Like always, Mom's helping their children. And she mouths the words, I am the light of the world. And the little girls, her eyes lit up, Dawn. And damn, she just smiled a great big beautiful smile. And she said, my mommy is the light of the world. Now, let me tell you something. I know that Jesus is the light of the world. But as far as it comes to mortal being, mortal human beings, my mother was the light of the world to me.
Yeah.
I know I preached it, and you can see it you can find it on the tapes where I preached a message about her once before. But I'm not alone in that feeling about how blessed my mother is. There was this president named Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said of his mother, who was Nancy Hanks, "No man is poor who has a godly mother."
Amen.
Now Aaron read to you Proverbs 31 about the virtuous woman. That was my mother.
Amen.
Abraham Lincoln said this quote, and Charlie, it almost mirrors what you said today. "I remember my mother's prayers," Lincoln says, "and how they always followed me.
Amen.
They have clung to my life."
Amen.
And I like this quote by Abraham Lincoln because it's true of me and my mother. He said, "All that I am," this is what Lincoln said, "all that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother."
Amen.
I realize that it's difficult being a mother today
Right.
because you live in a hostile world where people want a society where there are no absolute standards of right and wrong. I spoke to a friend of mine. He's having difficulties with his adult daughter. And she's been going off to a psychiatrist. And you know what that psychiatrist is telling her? All of your problems come from your mom and dad. So you see, that's the world we live in. No one ever wants to run up and say that problem is a problem because I created it. Motherhood has always been filled with hardships. You take, for example, a woman who works outside the home, then comes home and has to cook and make the bed and pick up the toys, okay? And we men, we've put in a hard day. We sit in our easy chair, Dale, and we say, "Honey, can you get me something to eat or drink?" And she just does it, Why do you think the psalmist was so right when he said about mothers, "Her candle goeth not out by night"? They work 24/7. So it's filled with hardships and worries and concerns. That's what being a mother is. But today I want to discuss a very special mother that's found in the Bible. And like us today, she brought her son up in a hostile pagan culture. I want to discuss the times that she lived in. I want to discuss what little we know of her. And then I want to point out the lasting effects of her influence in the world. This mother who brought down a Pharaoh. So here is a synopsis of her times. See, Jacob had entered into Egypt. They finally told the truth, that they'd sold Joseph into slavery. And so it was during the time of the drought. And there was still a number of years left. And so Joseph had gotten into power, second in command in Egypt. And so ordered the brothers to bring his dad and his younger brother. And so they entered into Egypt, 70 people. And so God blessed them during the 400 years that they were in Egypt, and they multiplied abundantly. And at first they were welcome in Egypt. But a new Pharaoh came to power who knew not Joseph. Now, historians believe that was because they had been invaded by people out of Syria called the Hyksos. And so the Hyksos had no idea who this Joseph was, see. And so he became fearful of the Jewish people because they outnumbered the Egyptian people. And so he became concerned, Don, that they could align themselves with an alien power, another power, and overthrow the government of Egypt. So he he feared the great number of the Israelites. And so what did he do? He had them put into slavery. And to thin down the population, he did a King Herod thing. He ordered the death of all boy babies 2 years and under. And that's where this great mother enters into this biblical account. Her name, Jochebed. Now I want to say something. I will not mention the preacher's name. He's deceased. But he was a famous TV preacher. And he was referring to this mother. And he said, jokingly, and he said, yeah, old Jockey. Let me tell you something. My blessed mother always taught me that you don't make fun of people.
Amen.
You don't belittle people. You don't embarrass people.
Amen.
What this man didn't know, let me tell you this. The letter J came into the King James Bible when it was printed for the English language. But in Hebrew, there is no J letter. In Hebrew, there's no sounding for J. They use Y. So her name is not Jochebed. Her name is not Jochebed. It's named Yoch with a Y, Jochebed. So let me tell you what we know about her. We don't know very much about her because she's working quietly behind the scenes. Isn't that the way mothers do? Work quietly behind the scene, and their quiet, gentle power transforms the lives of their children. She is a typical mother working quietly behind the scenes. And so we don't know very much about her, but she deserves more recognition than she gets. She deserves more recognition. She does not get the recognition she deserves. But she was courageous. The text in the book of Hebrews says they didn't care about the royal edict of killing the babies. And so, boy, she was crafty. And if you don't think women aren't smart, you're deceiving yourself.
Amen.
Okay? And so she was crafty. And so she built this little ark. But she also trusted God, total trust, total faith in God, that God would take care of her son. She put this little fella in an ark and floated him down the river, Don. Now you think, we're talking about the Nile River, it's full of crocodiles and hippos. By the way, did you know the hippo injures more people in Africa than any other animal? Yeah. And so she took total trust in God. But I believe she was a little on the cunning side too. I believe that she suspected and knew the schedule of Pharaoh's daughter who went down to the river to bathe. And I suspect she knew that when she drew that baby out, that beautiful, perfect baby, that her maternal instincts would set in. I believe that's now you don't have to believe that. There's no Bible proof for that. But I believe that's how smart she was. And so she had sent Miriam to go see where the ark had landed, and the Pharaoh's daughter pulls that little baby out, this perfect form baby, this beautiful little baby. And so she's going to adopt this child. And so Miriam comes up and says, would you like for me to get a nursemaid, a mother of the Hebrews to nurse this child? And she said, yes. And you said, and I will pay her. And so you can imagine Jochebed, you're going to pay me to nurse my own son? Pretty daggone slick, isn't she? Okay. And so she has him. Now, according to what I read, Dale, weaning was somewhere between 2 to 7 years. Now think about that. She had her son Moses during the formative years of his life. It's funny, Dale. They learned to talk, they learned to walk, all before they get to school. Then they get to school, and about 4th grade, they lay their head down under the desk, never to raise them again. Just making a comment there, John, okay? But she had him during the formative years. Now, you may not know this, but I learned this when I was teaching human communication. I can't think of it exactly, but it's a communication class, personal communication between people. They told me this. Well, this is just like psychology class, only put on a more simple level, you know. That's what the students told me. Did you know that a child is 80% developed as they will be as an adult by the age of 4? Isn't that amazing? So she had Moses during his formative years, and then we should not be in the least bit surprised when the next verse says in the text, by faith Moses, when he'd come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. In other words, he refused to give up his identity as a Jew. That was the influence of this mother. So Jochebed's teaching to her son Moses won the day. This mother of Moses, now let's think a little about her indirect influence, her lasting influence. She raised the man that God called to go into Egypt to lead his people out of slavery. She raised the man who went up on Mount Sinai and brought down the 10 Commandments. This is the man that she raised. And so indirectly, she brought down the Pharaoh. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people criticize the 10 Commandments. But I want you to know that the 10 Commandments is the basis for all the legal systems in the Western world. That is her influence, this Hebrew woman. So her influence extends even to this day. You know, mothers have always influenced their sons. George Washington. Now, notice there, I pronounced it Washington, not Washington. I used Washington yesterday, and Aaron laughed at me. So I know it's pronounced Washington. He was going to join the British Navy. Did you know that? Actually, he was ready to go up the plank, right onto the British ship, and the mother said, George, I've been praying about this, and I just do not believe that this is the right thing for you. Being the dutiful son that he was, he walked off that plank, went on to become the general of the Continental Army. Can you imagine what it would have been like to have to face Admiral George Washington? We would still be a colony of England. Then there's another example I want to give you. Now, he's not a popular president, but I will tell you, there was a fellow named Richard Nixon. And as a child, his mother would hold him and pray for him. And she told President Nixon, when he was a boy, God has destined you to do great things. And whenever you get into power, whatever power that is, you be good to the nation of Israel. That's what she instructed him.
Amen.
Well, he was president of the United States, and in 1973, the Arabs, on the most holy day of the year, Yom Kippur, attacked. They weren't expecting it. And so Golda Meir, who was that great woman of Israel, prime minister, called President Nixon at 2 a.m, pleading with help, or they were going to be destroyed as a nation. Nixon said, I heard the voice of my mother.
Amen. What he said.
And he said, when I heard her, I heard the voice of my mother. So he sends in 20,000 tons of supplies. And they beat back the Arabs on Yom Kippur.
Yep.
It was a hard-working mother, poorly educated, but she was like a janitor or something. She instructed her son that he could be anything he wanted to be. And she worked hard and put him through college. And that son became the head surgeon of Johns Hopkins University, named Benjamin Carson.
Amen.
I wonder how many children have been saved their lives because of the influence of Benjamin Carson's mother on his life.
Amen.
Mothers are just so great. Mothers are great because of effectual fervent prayer that James 5:16 talks about.
Yeah.
How many times have mothers prayed for their children?
Amen.
Or how many times have they studied the Word of God according to Deuteronomy 11:19? Let me tell you something. My blessed mother would read her Bible every night. I've watched her. Or in setting the example, as Paul had told Timothy about his mother and his grandmother. Setting the example. Or of the compassionate heart of a mother that you find in Psalm 103 verse 13. Or they're standing firm for the gospel. Oh, the influence. You know, as I said earlier in Sunday school class, I know there are a lot of women that think that being a mother and a homemaker is belittling. That's not what Ben Carson said.
No.
Ben Carson said that there's nothing more important than parenting.
Amen.
And I'll be honest with you, I've been in a school teacher for a long time, 33 years, and I could tell which kids had parenting and which kids didn't have parenting.
Amen. I bet you did.
Now, my dad was important to me, had a big influence on my life. But let me just say this to all you mothers. Happy Mother's Day.
Amen.
Because I'm going to tell you something, Dale. Mothers are just special.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Say something.
Brother Charlie, go ahead.
I remember when they was all running for president, 16 of them on the Republican ticket. And the final question that they asked them was, I want each one to answer this question, whose